Good afternoon, Jay. Thank you for accepting my request to interview for what not to do in entrepreneurship. A
Thank you for having
very unusual entrepreneur you are.
me.
Um, and I am so certain that the readers and the entrepreneurs have a lot to learn from the new definition of social entrepreneurship, right? You are not only a social entrepreneur by the passion, but by the evolution of what life has been for you. So, respectfully, with love to Alex, and an amazing job and inspiration that this girl did for all of us, raising nearly $30 million in 2019, 26 point, whatever the exact numbers are. From I want to raise $2,000 for my hospital was just an inspiring story of that. And you and your wife made that happen. So we are all eager and anxious to hear, obviously, the dynamics, the way, how you have evolved, but just a totally different type of entrepreneurship. So please give us a short rundown of the initial parts of your journey that began this passionate entrepreneurship in social sort of quality of life enhancement, especially for the children.
Well, it started, like you said, it was started by my daughter, Alex. And she came up with this idea when she was a cancer patient. She was 4 years old, and she told us she wanted to set up a lemonade stand to help the doctors the way that they had helped her so that they could help other kids. And so she set up that first lemonade stand. She raised $2,000 in the front yard, um, just selling lemonade one cup at a time. But people took to what she was trying to do. Um, the next year, we moved to be closer to a hospital, to Philadelphia from New England. And she started talking about having a lemonade stand. When we moved, we didn't know anyone, but word got out. And in one day in Philadelphia, she raised $12,000. Next year came around, she started talking about the lemonade stand again, and it poured rain. But she raised $18,000 in the pouring rain. And that was a real turning point for her, her movement, because after that lemonade stand, she started getting letters in the mail every day from people that said, "Alex, we heard what you were doing. We decided to set up our own fundraiser. Here's the money." So then, the next year came around. She was still fighting her cancer all this time. Next year came around. We knew that the cancer was taking over her body, and she told us she wanted to set up the lemonade stand again, which we didn't think she was going to want to do, but she did. And she was doing an interview. It was before social media like this, but she was on the phone. She was talking to a reporter, and we would always tell her when reporters called, and if she was feeling okay and she recognized where they were calling from, she would talk to them, and if not, she would tell them that she didn't feel good. But she was talking to this reporter, and it was a big magazine. We don't remember what magazine, but it was like Good Housekeeping or Family Circle. And we heard Alex tell the reporter, "Well, last year my goal was to raise $100,000, and I did that with the help of other people. So this year I'm going to raise $1 million with the lemonade stand." And she finished the interview, and when she finished, my wife said, "Alex, why would you tell a reporter you're going to raise $1 million? You realize that you set up a lemonade stand in our front yard?" And she said, "Well, I think if people continue to help me, I think we can do it." And so that was a real movement and a real motivation for a lot of people to get behind her. And even as she was dying. And so within a couple of weeks of that call to action by her, she was at about $700,000 with the help of other people. And we got a call from friends of ours at Volvo Cars who were big fans of Alex's. They said, "How is she doing?" And we said, "She's not doing well. The cancer's, taking over her body." They said, "How about her $1 million goal?" And we said, "She's at 700,000. They said, "Tell her we're taking her over $1 million." So they took her over the $1 million mark, and just a couple of weeks later, she passed away from the cancer.
Wow. What a touching, but something in the world of business, she taught us all that in
Yeah.
order for you to spend and to do things, you must raise the capital first, right? So
You got to
that's
have the idea. You got to have the idea, and you got to
right.
raise the money, and you got to execute.
Yeah. So Jay, you and your wife then took over from there, and give us some of the. I mean, and you essentially, from a commercial space of it, we can call it. You franchise the capabilities of what you are doing so that it can be reproduced and scalable from a business point of view, which is a tremendous learning for social entrepreneurship. Please tell us how you were able to achieve that, and what were some of the hurdles that you had to overcome.
Well, early on, we were kind of lucky in what Alex had set up. She had so many people that were passionate about what she was doing because they took to her mission, they took to her story. And so we started having people that were all around the country, different cities that sort of became our hubs in their city. And they were our feet on the ground, volunteers raising money and passionate about it. And now if you fast forward, 16 years later, we have people that have been raising money for us for 16 years. You know, some of them had little kids at the time, and if you fast forward to today, their kids are in high school. Some of their kids are in college. Some of their kids have graduated college, depending how old they were when they started. But it's all they've ever known. They've always done this as a family every summer. And then we've had companies that have done the same thing. The companies became passionate because of either the leader of the company, or sometimes it was an employee that brought it up to the leadership of the company. And the companies have been with us for years like that also. So we've had the help of many, many people.
So, what were some of the challenges that you managed or that you could share with other entrepreneurs who would like to engage in such kind of social entrepreneurship?
I think one of our biggest challenges early on was unlike what most people would have, and it was trying to figure out what the good opportunities were and what the bad opportunities were. Because Alex was in the media a lot. The foundation was in the media a lot. And so when that happens, you get a lot of good people that come out, and you get a lot of bad people that come out, and all of them tell you they want to help you. So you need to figure out who the good people are and who the people that don't have good intentions. They're there for themselves. But then, once we got through that initial hurdle, I think the biggest challenge is how to stay relevant and how to keep things fresh. Because once you finish your year, the race starts again. You got to figure out new ways to raise money. You got to figure out new ways to keep things going, new ways to have impact on, in our case, it's how do we have impact on childhood cancer? And, if you were a for-profit company, how are you going to generate more revenue? How are you going to make more money? How are you going to get new products? Things like that.
Jay, a part of your passion and enthusiasm and the draw of the resources was based on the other side, which is the delivery of a product, right, or delivery of research. Uh, how did you construct an infrastructure that allowed you to optimize that delivery of a product or that service to the cause that was Alex?
Well, I think because of the way we started, bootstrapped, grassroots, living it every day. The first way that we had impact was something that we witnessed while Alex was still alive, and that was we would get to know kids in the hospital that were very sick, the sickest of the sick. Because when you have a child with cancer, if you go to a big institution, there's certain institutions around the country where parents who are willing to travel go to these big institutions to try to find a cure for their kid. And so we would see the sickest of the sick kids in the big hospital that we moved to go to. And everybody was there for the same thing, a possible cure. But in order to get that cure, you had to enroll either in a clinical trial or in a compassionate use of a drug that was off trial. And so we would see these kids that needed treatments, and then you would go back the next week and they wouldn't be there anymore. They would have died. And so we would talk to the researchers and say, what's going on? And they said, part of our problem is we don't have enough staff. So we have these kids that are traveling here to try to get these treatments. We have possible drugs that could help them, but there's so much paperwork. There's so many tests that need to be done. There's so much logistics that need to be done for these kids and for the government that sometimes it's hard to get things lined up. And so we said, well, what would help? And they said, a staff person, a nurse practitioner. If we had an extra nurse practitioner, we think we can get more kids enrolled in clinical trials or get the compassionate use. And so we hired a nurse practitioner half-time that first year, and they tripled the number of kids they were getting into trials by one half-time person. And
Wow.
so, yeah, amazing, right? And so the next year we made that person full-time, and they doubled it again. So, what we decided that we want to do is we wanted to try to fill niches that weren't being filled. That,
The bottlenecks. You
What
mean the
did you say?
bottlenecks of the? You said you were trying to find the bottlenecks
Yes.
that cause the results to be slowed down.
Yeah, in that instance, it was a bottleneck. And in other instances, as we've matured, it was areas of research that weren't being funded either by the government or by other organizations. There was a time where we went into doing high risk research where we could, if high risk, high impact, and if we could get somebody 2 years of a project under their belt, they have preliminary data, then they can go and get a bigger grant. So that was one area that we maneuvered to. But the key to it all was we had really great advisors. We had a passion for making a difference, and we had great advisors to guide us along the way.
And you found those advisors how?
A couple of them we knew from the hospital, and they introduced us to other scientists from around the country. And most of them are still with us today on our scientific advisory board. They're that passionate about what we're doing and that they've stayed with us for all these years.
Yeah. So in the world of entrepreneurial business, entrepreneurs are always looking for mentors or what is considered as gurus or, kind of people. So in your own social, entrepreneurship, you found these mentors in the form of your board of advisors who allowed you to, breach or to understand the space better. Is that a sort of interpretation?
Yeah. So what my wife and I would do is we would come up with crazy ideas, but we're not scientists, and they would sort of take those crazy ideas and figure out how we could sort of act upon them in a smart scientific way. I think as far as mentors go, we also had mentors on our board of directors that helped us. And one of the most impactful one was our first board chair, who actually is the one who convinced us to start the organization. His name was Jeremy Nowak, and he ran a large nonprofit in Philadelphia, and he taught us so many things about how to start an organization, about how to grow an organization, and really, he taught us things and told us what to expect as we grew, things that were going to happen as our organization matured and developed. And we didn't really believe him at the time, but when those things happened, we were ready because he had told us, listen, you're in stage one right now. There's all these different stages of an organization, and as you move along, you're going to need different people, you're going to need different skills, and you don't really realize that until you hit it. But the fact that he told us ahead of time, and then when it happened, we're like, wow, Jeremy told us about this.
Yes. So I was just about to ask you in a different way. Is who are those one or two persons, or what are those one or two events that in your journey you would consider as God sent?
Yeah.
That transformed you, and how? So you already said one of them is Jeremy. Is there some other one?
I would say Jeremy, and then there was there was another person, our second board chair, who Jeremy introduced us to. And, his name is Stephen Cohn, and he became our second board chair. He's a completely different personality and different traits than Jeremy. And Jeremy was a great board chair for stage 1 startup organization. Stephen Cohn took us through stage 2, stage 3, because he had a different personality, he had a different skill set. And I think, you need people on your early board of directors that can introduce you to other people. And, Jeremy always warned us about one thing, and he said, listen, if you have people on your board, they're going to introduce you to people that are similar to themselves. So you always have to have a different group of people on your board so that you have different people introducing you to different skill sets. And I think Jeremy was probably the exception to that rule, because he was so aware of that, and he tried to introduce us to different people that came from different backgrounds and had different skill sets and were in different businesses and had different networks. But that is one thing that you really have to watch out for as you're a growing organization. You need people that are coming from different perspectives to help you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So essentially, in order to create an effective, social entrepreneurship, you need to get diversified board of directors and board of advisors, specifically board of directors, because board of advisors are much more on the product of the technical side of it, right? And you were able to get that, but the most important thing is bring them not from one definition of the other person, but from different kinds of backgrounds, so that you bring a lot of progress, accelerate the progress of the whole board and the organization. Is that the message?
I think that is the message. You want different skills, and you have to keep track of what skills you have on there. And then when you're an early organization, you want working board members. You want people who are going to actually do some work to help you out. But then as you mature, you're looking for different skills, right? You're looking for some people who can introduce you to others. You're looking for, as a nonprofit, you're looking for some people that can write a check. You're still looking for some people who aren't afraid to get their hands dirty and do some work. And then, you're looking for, maybe accounting people. You're looking for people with a legal background. Different skills at different times.
Hey Jay, this is a totally from the left kind of question. You have ingrained, developed, built a successful entrepreneurship entity that is for a passionate cause. And you've heard about other entrepreneurs in products or services. How do you wonder sometimes is the difference between the entrepreneur that is you and the entrepreneur that you hear of or in a not social entrepreneurship space?
I think there's a lot of similarities. When we started doing this, we said we want to run this as for profit. Think about the for profit, but then the profits are going to have impact. And so I think in a lot of ways we come from a for profit mindset. We've run businesses in our past. We never thought we would work in a nonprofit, let alone run one. And so I think we have more similarities to the for profit world, for profit entrepreneurs, than differences. It's just what you do with the excess money at the end of the year. Our money goes to fund programs and research projects and help families. And I guess in the for-profit world, money can go back into investing in the business and eventually, hopefully, can go to the investors.
So the return on to the shareholders is different in an kind of entrepreneurship that product is, and then from the type of programs or organizations that you run.
Yeah, our return to the shareholders is having an impact on our cause. So it's in your heart rather than in your wallet.
So if you were in a business school and you were asked to share about your journey, what are the 2 or 3 things that you would tell them as what not to do in pursuing this kind of, I call it entrepreneurship?
I would say the number one thing is don't think you know everything. You have to have an open mind. I'm always skeptical, but I try to keep an open mind for new ideas. And I think that I'm better at it now. And um, you know, rather than say yes or no right away, I like to think about things for a day, sometimes 2 days. And so one of our early board members taught me the term, why don't you marinate on that?
That's a good one.
Yeah. So, I mean, sometimes when it's a yes, you know it's a yes right away, but you don't want to be a no right away all the time.
Yeah.
You want to marinate on things and you think about it over the course of a day or a weekend. You think about different aspects, about different things that could happen. And, sometimes you can make something good out of something that you initially think is not a good idea. So I think that is a really good one. Marinating. It's kind of a weird word, but
Yes, but it's an effective one. It gives you the picture in the mind right away, So what's
yeah.
the other one?
I think another one is leaning on people who have different skills than you. You should always hire people that are smarter than you in different areas. So, you hire a really smart marketing person or you have somebody on your board and you need to lean on them. Sometimes an entrepreneur thinks they need to do everything. But it's really difficult when you're starting out that you feel like you need to have your fingers in everything and you feel like you need to do everything, but you need to get over that and be able to delegate. So I think delegation.
Any more?
I mean, we could be here all day because there's a lot. Right? In my instance, it is because my wife and I work together. And listen to your wife,
Well,
or listen to your spouse, right?
yes.
Because your spouse is usually smarter than you.
So that's what you mean by hiring. In when you say hiring a smarter person, you also mean marrying a smarter person, huh?
Absolutely, I definitely married up.
Through this all experience, how would you want the readers or other people who admire you to be remembered? How do you want them to, how do you want to inspire them, as including, the struggling entrepreneurs? What would you say to them, and what would you want them to say about you?
I want people to think that I'm a hard worker. I watched my parents work hard growing up. My father was a blue collar worker. My mother cleaned houses. And I think they taught there was 5 of us kids. They taught us to work hard. And I want my kids to think that I'm a hard worker. And I want people who, hear about me to say, wow, he really was a hard worker. Because I'm a harder worker than I am a smart person. And I think that you can make up, for a lot of deficiencies in hard work and smart work. So I think that's one thing, but also passionate. We're lucky that we're so passionate about the cause that we work for, because otherwise it would be hard to work that hard if you're not passionate about what you're doing.
And you wouldn't be able to also influence as many people as you have were you not that passionate about the cause, right?
That's 100% true. That's 100% true. You remind me of a story that um, that somebody told us recently. They've been supporting us for maybe 14 years. And they said the reason that they supported us from then and all the way through till now is because when they called on the phone that they and talked to somebody that they wanted to tell them they wanted to support us, I answered the phone and I talked to them. And they thought it was so unusual and surprising that one of the founders of an organization would answer the phone and would talk to them. And I think it's weird that somebody wouldn't do that.
Yes, 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 yes.
And so when we were young as an organization, we would tell people in an interview, listen, we don't have cleaners of the office. So everybody is responsible for taking out the garbage, once a month, 1 week a month. Do you have a problem with that? And if they say yes, then they weren't the right person. And now, as an organization, we still don't have voicemail. And we expect everybody at the organization to have an hour where they answer the phone every day. Because we think it really teaches you about, in a regular company, your customers, but for us, our supporters, by just answering the phone, you learn so much about your supporters. And although now we're not in the office technically, but once we go back to the office, we'll still have that. Everybody has a phone hour.
I have just one question which comes from my heart is you are doing this, uh, in a environment where abundance is definitely a reality. How would you want to translate and impact that to the other children of the world?
How would I want to transfer what to the other children?
How would you want to transfer all the capabilities that you have developed in this organization to similar causes to other children in the world or to other researchers in the world?
I mean, we think it's sort of our duty to help other organizations. And so we're always willing to get on the phone with an organization that is just starting out, or, if we're too busy to get on the phone, I'll always say, because we get these requests a lot, I'll say, put your questions in an email. Because if you want to talk to me on the phone, it's probably going to be next month or the month after. But if you send me an email with your top questions, I will answer them when I have a few minutes free. And then if you have more questions, you can ask me, because I think the world is a better place if more people would be open like that.
But are you able to get the facilities and the knowledge of the world base of experts, in a much easier way? A, because you are a not-for-profit kind of an organization, and B, because you have such a passionate cause. Are you able to create relationships and leverage the ability of doctors and scientists around the world? Is that easy or is that difficult right now in your space of business?
Well, I think for us it's easy because we've hit that sort of critical mass in size and the amount of money that we give away. People see that, we're one of the largest childhood cancer organizations. So if somebody's in that space, they want to be on our side. They want to be in our corner. They want us to be in their corner. So I think we have that going for us. I think a lot of smaller organizations would struggle with that because they don't have the resources, and not people would know, all right, well, they're giving away 50 or 100,000 a year. They're not giving away 20 million a year. So we do have that advantage.
So what do you and your wife think are the missing pieces that you wish were there in enabling you or accelerating this journey of yours to further success? Besides capital, of course.
Yeah. I think one of the problems and has been typically in when organizations are funding grants, they let the grantees decide what projects are going to be. And what I mean by that is you put out an RFP, they send in an application with their idea, and if you were a for-profit company, you would never approach a problem in that way. You would have a master plan and then sort of break the master plan down into smaller pieces. And so as we've grown, that's always sort of been on the back of our mind, but as we've grown to become a larger organization, we started doing that a couple of years ago. And so we identified thought leaders in some of the big problems in childhood cancer, and we invited them to come together and help us come up with a plan for how to approach these problems. And then we're breaking it down, and we put up $25 million to try to solve these problems.
So I have asked you.
I think approach is one of the big ways.
So the just so that you can provide a little bit more clarity, the guidelines that are used by an organization that is, a big organizations in terms of developing a master plan and funding the elements of the master plan, as compared to yours, where the plan develops as a result of some elements and proposals that come to you. Is that the understanding that you would like to change, to a little bit more formal kind of processes of allocating funds and resources?
So I think we want to do both. We want to keep funding the way we were, where scientists can come up with creative ideas and approaches. But at the same time, we want to have an organized approach to attack the problems that we've identified. So we want to have the best of both worlds. We want to have creative ideas from many scientists from around the world, and then we want to have the organized approach to problems that thought leaders have identified, and how do we solve those biggest problems.
So I have asked you, Jay, a lot of questions. Thank you for answering all of them in such methodically manner for us to understand. What are some of the questions that you would ask me, given that opportunity now for this call, for this interview?
I think one of the questions would be, how do you take things to the next level? How do you know when you're ready to progress to that next level when you're in any kind of organization?
So maybe a little out of the dimension that you and I had just talked about. But as you know, when you are seeking breakthroughs in any processes, you want to tap into the don't know what you don't know space. Because if you know what you know, which is, and you know what you don't know, that is barely 3 to 5% of the universe's opportunities of finding solutions. So in order for you to disrupt the process, and I use the word disruption respectfully, by the way, in the sense not cause disasters, but to disrupt, change the thinking, whether it is in research, whether it is in capitals or stuff like that. You have to look at what are those abilities, and I'll give you some example, and then you can take a look at that kind of things. So, there are various countries where these kinds of researches are passionate to their, because the first thing that you need is the capital engine in order to do anything different, right? Because without that, it's difficult to do anything different, because you're consumed and committed to what is on the roadmap. So were you to choose the 5 countries, I'm just making things up and I'm giving you the thought process, and you say, okay, herbal development of possibilities is huge in Peru or in South America. It was significant in the school of, the Ayurvedas in India, and these were safe, non-toxic, solutions. So let me think about getting a corporate in that world to partner with, in order for me to create an affiliation under that partnership with capital resources that can be enabled to produce that under the Alex Lemonade organization.
Right.
Now you suddenly created a space of capital, a space of knowledge, and a space of accelerated, because not all elements do have to be basic research. Some of them could be required, what I call as conjugate products or complementary products, enabling a stronger immune system in order to be able to create the better defenses or treatment against cancer.
Right.
Is a very strong solution required, and so therefore if you enable that kind where there is enough knowledge of immunostimulants to be able to create the boost in the immune system, then you will create a better treatment and a rapid acceleration. But at the same time, you would have created a funding through a corporations or that some local agencies, right? So that's what that would be. I give you an example of it where it is you don't know what you don't know kind of space. And maybe if you spend 3 to 5% of your time and resources in that, you will be able to get a huge amount of returns in terms of the don't know what you don't. Because definitely, in order to create breakthroughs, which is what you are pursuing, you at times have to go through breakdowns which you already know. So therefore that would be my thought process, in order as an entrepreneur, that's how we have to think in order to tap into the other resources and capabilities that do exist today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like that, you don't know what you don't know.
You don't. So any other questions you have of me?
So I think one timely question would be, like so many companies and organizations, we're in unprecedented time right now. And we have never had a year where we have not grown. We have one flat year. So what do you do? What do you do when you have that year where suddenly your revenue is down and you need to rebuild?
Yeah. First of all, I think that this is not a case of you only; it's just everywhere. But you have the ability to reach out through your passion and your stories to a lot of people, because now is really the time for people to think of what really life is. When
Mm-hmm.
they're busy, they have really no time to think. They're just so consumed by it. Now is the time they're spending with their children. Now is the time they understand the value of the. So maybe you can create your package, just suggesting a virtual Alex Lemonade capability, and you do a demo unit, and you give all of that to the children who are not in school now, and let them collect those things from their parents on Zoom. And you can sponsor the Zooms on those bases. So they could go and say, today we are having a virtual Alex Lemonade, and this is what we are going to do and talk about, and have them collect. So instead of having the physical organizations, you now have a unique time where your rate of revenues could grow so hugely because of the scalability of this capability and the availability of students and parents at a place where they could really. So I would create a beautiful Alex Lemonade virtual program, and give a short video and say, now we are in the process of doing that, and give some gifts or whatever that is, from Alex's story. I'm pretty sure that you would have a lot of the students now being aware of it, wanting to do something like this in the summer.
They use the problem as an asset.
Use the time opportunity as the asset.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
I'll try it.
Okay, try it, and I'll be happy to share whatever. But I think it is definitely the perfect time for you to create a massive, campaign across the place, especially with all the infrastructure, because you let the children become the ambassadors, which you have an ambassador program,
Right.
so you can have that virtual ambassadors of all place. Thank you so very much once again from the
Thank
bottom
you.
of my heart, and give my regards and inspirations. I hope you will get a lot of them from this book, with all entrepreneurs all across the business schools and stuff. And please call me
I love it.
anytime. Okay, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Sanjeev.